Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
J.J. Abrams, the director and co-writer on Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, talks about how he's not playing things safe this time around like he did with The Force Awakens Episode 7, and here's what he says. In Episode 7, I was adhering to a kind of approach that felt right for Star Wars in my head. It was about finding a visual language, like shooting on locations and doing practical things as much as possible. And we continue to do that in Episode 9, but I also found myself doing things I'm not sure I would have been as daring to do on Episode 7. And actually credits the writer and director of The Last Jedi Episode 8 in the Star Wars franchise, Rian Johnson, about this change. He says, Rian helped remind me that that's why we do these movies, not just to do something that you've seen before. I won't say that I felt constrained or limited on Episode 7, but I found myself wanting to do something that felt more consistent with the original trilogy than not. And on 9, I found myself feeling like I'm just gonna go for it a bit more. Now, I do like what he's saying here. I like that he's saying that he's not trying to do what Episode 7 did, which is really just retell the story of the original trilogy. A lot of people felt like it was kind of bringing that nostalgic factor of the original trilogy back a little too much, and that was basically the entire goal of it. I mean, Bob Iger has said this, the CEO of Disney, that when they were making that film, they wanted to do something that really touched the 70s and 80s feel that you had when you watched the original trilogy, that old vibe that people got when they watched the original films. They wanted to bring that back in 2015, and they did. They did a great job on that, but in terms of storytelling, it's very limiting. And I know that was the goal for them, and they achieved that goal, but as Star Wars fans, we kind of look at it and say, yes, it's nice to look back at the original trilogy and be fond of it and remember it again, but we can just rewatch those films if we want to relive them. We don't need to have a brand new story that's not a brand new story and that's just copying those films. So I like that he's saying that he's doing something more daring with Episode 9, and you can kind of tell that already with Emperor Palpatine coming back and everything, but there's still a feel of they're still doing the original trilogy, you know, like I've said in the past, of Palpatine's coming back. I mean, are they really going to let him win at the end of it? We all know that's probably not going to happen, and then Kylo Ren and Rey are most likely going to team up. Kylo Ren's going to be redeemed, then they're going to defeat the Emperor. It feels very consistent with the original trilogy still, and that's where I have problems with the sequel trilogy so far, is that it feels like it hasn't told a brand new story. This is the opportunity to do that. This is the opportunity to dive in on the characters just a little bit more, and I really think The Rise of Skywalker needs to repeat history, unfortunately, like the prequels did, where the first two films in that trilogy were really disappointing for a lot of fans. No one was really fond of the characters at the time, and it wasn't until Episode 3 that the characters got a little bit more development, specifically Anakin and Obi-Wan, and you felt more of a connection to them, and you actually felt like it was a Star Wars film, and everyone came out enjoying the Revenge of the Sith movie a lot more than they did than the previous two installments in that trilogy. You may have that same thing with Episode 9 here. You may have a movie that really makes you go, where was that the rest of the trilogy? Why wasn't The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi like this? And it's kind of one of those blessings and curses at the same time, where you have people like me who weren't fond of The Last Jedi, but seeing that it influences J.J. Abrams just a little bit to be a little more daring on what he's doing with Star Wars is nice to hear. I mean, that's the big thing with Star Wars, is that it thrives on collaboration. It thrives on people doing something outside of the normal filmmaking realm. And you need that with Episode 9. You need something new. It's going to be really disappointing to me and a lot of other fans in the Star Wars fandom if Episode 9 is just repeating what the original trilogy did. And so if he says they're not playing it safe, they're going to do something new, he's not going to do what he did with The Force Awakens and admittedly play it safe. He was open to that criticism and he accepted it and acknowledged it, and I like that about JJ. I think people don't give him enough credit anymore in the Star Wars fandom. He at least acknowledges a lot of the criticism that he gets, and I would say works on it. And I think Episode 9, he's going to almost respond to the critics of Episode 7 of saying that it was too much like the original trilogy, it was too safe, and in this one he's gonna go, well, I did my best to do a new story and do something the way I wanted to do it, and here it is. So I'm looking forward to Episode 9. I'm cautiously optimistic is what I constantly say. I'm still with that mentality right now. We're getting closer to the release date. I mean, we're a month and a half away, if not a month and a few weeks. It's going to be an interesting ride, and it's going to be an interesting time to see how this story wraps up the Skywalker saga story, and how he brings characters like Luke back into it, because we know Luke's in it, we know Leia's in it, and Carrie Fisher sadly passed away in 2016. So there's going to be a lot of interest in this movie on how it's executed. But unfortunately for a lot of fans in the Star Wars fandom, it's too little too late. but I'm pretty confident if it can pull it off, it'll be exactly like Revenge of the Sith, where we look back on it and say, that was the best one out of the trilogy. It's just unfortunate that it was the last one in it. But tell me your thoughts below. What do you guys think about J.J. Abrams no longer playing it safe with Episode 9? Give me your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see y'all next time, and may the Force be with you, always.